Throughout history, there have been many wars, such as
the American Revolution,
Indian Wars,
Mexican Wars,
Civil War,
Spanish-American War,
World War I, World War II.
What about one of the lesser-known wars?
One of the lesser-known wars is the Korean War.
The North Korean army quickly pushed the South Korean army to the southernmost part of the peninsula. The United States, which had a security agreement with South Korea, responded by sending troops to the peninsula.
The United Nations also passed a resolution calling for the withdrawal of North Korean troops and the restoration of peace in the region.
The war quickly escalated and soon became a global conflict. The United States and the United Nations coalition fought against North Korea and China, while the Soviet Union supported North Korea. The war was fought primarily in the Korean Peninsula, but also involved air and naval battles. The war was also fought on a large scale, with over 5 million soldiers and civilians killed on both sides.
The Korean War was a brutal and devastating conflict characterized by heavy fighting, heavy casualties, and a lack of progress on either side. The war was also marked by the use of new technologies such as jet fighters and tanks. The war also resulted in the displacement of millions of people and the destruction of much of the country's infrastructure. The war ended on July 27, 1953 with the signing of an armistice agreement. The agreement called for a ceasefire, but the war officially ended with the signing of the peace treaty in 1953. The Korean War resulted in a stalemate, with the border between North and South Korea remaining unchanged. The Korean War also resulted in the division of the Korean Peninsula, with the North and South remaining separate and distinct countries to this day. The Korean War had a profound impact on the world, and in particular on the Korean people. The war resulted in the deaths of over 5 million soldiers and civilians, and the displacement of millions of people. The Korean War also resulted in the division of the Korean Peninsula. The war also had significant impact on the United States and the United Nations, as the war was the first major conflict of the Cold War. One of the most significant battles of the Korean War was the Battle of Heartbreak Ridge, which took place from September to October 1951. The United States and the South Korean forces fought against the North Koreans in a bid to secure Heartbreak Ridge, which was a strategic military position. Despite suffering heavy casualties, the United States and the South Korean forces were able to secure the ridge, which dealt a significant blow to the Korean army. The United Nations was involved in the Korean War and played a crucial role in the meddling peace negotiations between the two sides. The UN attempted to reach a settlement several times, but talks broke down and fighting returned. It was not until July 27, 1953 that an armistice was signed, officially ending the Korean War. The armistice resulted in the creation of a demilitarized zone separating North and South Korea. The end of the Korean War had a significant impact on both North and South Korea. South Korea emerged as a democratic country and experienced rapid economic growth, while North Korea became a communist state and suffered under harsh economic conditions. The Korean War also had a significant impact on the United States, which saw the conflict as a major part of the Korean War. The United States continued to maintain a military presence in South, which has a lot of impact in the region, especially North and South Korea. In conclusion, the Korean War is a lesser-known war, but it has significant impact on the world. The war was a result of the division of Korea after World War II and the Cold War tensions between the United States and the Soviet Union. The Korean War was a brutal and devastating conflict characterized by heavy fighting, heavy casualties, and lack of progress on either side. The Korean War officially ended in 1953 with the signing of the Armistice Agreement, but no peace treaty was ever signed. The Korean War is a reminder of the devastating impact of war and the importance of peace and diplomacy in the revolving conflict. The Korean War, which took place from 1950 to 1953, was one of the most significant military conflicts in modern history. Although it only lasted 3 years, it left an inevitable mark on the global political landscape. Here are some fun facts about the Korean War that you may or may not have known.
It was not officially declared a war. Despite the massive military involvement and the loss of life on both sides, the Korean War was not technically a war. Instead, it was classified as a police action by the United Nations, which authorized the deployment of troops to repel North Korean aggression against South Korea. It involved the first combat between jet fighters. The Korean War saw the first ever combat between jet fighters, as the Soviet Union and China provided North Korea with advanced MiG-15 planes. This caused significant consternation for the U.S. and its allies.
It inspired the creation of MASH. The Korean War inspired the creation of the iconic TV series MASH, which follows the adventures of a team of doctors working at a mobile army surgical hospital. The show's creators drew on their own experiences serving in the Korean War to craft its distinctive blend of comedy and drama. John F. Kennedy and Johnny Cash both served in the Korean War. Before he became the 35th President of the United States, John F. Kennedy served as a naval officer during the Korean War. He commanded a patrol torpedo boat in the Pacific and was famously involved in a dramatic rescue mission that earned him a Purple Heart. Meanwhile, Johnny Cash was stationed in Germany during the war, where he served as a Morse code intercept operator.
Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin also had Korean War connections.
While they are best known for the historic moon landing, both Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin had military service in the Korean War.
Armstrong flew for 78 combat missions as a naval aviator during the conflict.
Ted Williams interrupted his baseball career to serve in the Korean War.
Ted Williams is one of the greatest baseball players of all time. He interrupted his career twice to serve in the Korean War. Ted Williams interrupted his baseball career to serve in the Korean War.
Ted Williams, one of the greatest baseball players of all time, interrupted his career twice to serve in the military, including during the Korean War. He served as a Marine fighter pilot and saw action in several missions, earning a number of commendations and medals for his service.
The Korean War saw the first ever use of helicopters. The Korean War saw the first ever use of helicopters in a combat setting, as both sides used them for a variety of purposes, including medical evacuations, transport, and reconnaissance. The helicopters proved invaluable in the mountainous terrain of Korea, where they could send supplies and troops to otherwise inaccessible areas. It produced a ceasefire but no peace treaty. After 3 years of intense fighting, the Korean War ended in a ceasefire that remains in effect to this day. However, no peace treaty was ever signed, which means that technically the two Koreas are still at war. The ongoing tension and occasional military flare-ups along the demilitarized zone attest to the lasting legacy of this conflict. Number 9. The war was fought in brutal winter conditions, with temperatures reaching as low as negative 40 degrees Celsius. Number 10. The war also had a major impact on the political landscape of the United States, with many Americans becoming disillusioned with military intervention overseas. After the Korean War, many Koreans decided to move to a different country, such as the United States and Canada. But some decided to stay in North or South Korea, where they still live to this day. But we cannot forget who we lost. Over 33,000 American soldiers died during the Korean War. After the war, the South Koreans, after signing the armistice agreement, were called a coward by the North Koreans. After the war, the North Koreans believed they won the war, and they went home with a sense of relief and pride. In conclusion, the Korean War was a significant event in world history, with far-reaching consequences for the two Koreas in the United States. The conflict was intense and resulted in heavy casualties and significant damage to both North and South Korea. As of 2020, 1,980,000 Koreans live in America.